Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Hair of the Dog podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Begley, and today we are talking about tax deductions and retirement savings. I promise it's going to be much more interesting and exciting than it sounds. We have back one of my favorite guests to talk about all things numbers, taxes, retirement, all the stuff. Tiffany Bastian from Bastian Accounting, who is a enrolled agent with the IRS that specializes in helping photographers and photographers only. So this is going to be a great conversation, really built around what is and isn't deductible in your business, as well as how to potentially save lots of money for your future retirement that your future self will thank you profusely for. So make sure you take a listen. Oh, and also, if you're not in the US, I think this is probably still worthwhile listening because even though we'll be talking about US tax law, some of the things are likely also deductible in your country so that you can look into that and at least know what questions to ask your tax professional that you work with in your country. So stay tuned and enjoy. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Hair of the Dog podcast. I am back with one of my favorite number loving guests, Tiffany Bastian, Tiffany Bastian Accounting. Welcome back, Tiffany.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. It is quarter one, which is like, is that accountant's favorite season or most horrified season?
I feel like it's the feat of strength. We make it through.
It is coffee, more
We make it
coffee tea
through.
season.
Yes, yes. It's the
Perfect.
abundance season, that's what people call it now. Instead of saying it's
Oh,
busy, it's the abundance season.
Okay. All right. I like it. I like it. Perfect. So yeah, so we were thinking today of having you on the podcast because it is, end of the year. People are starting to prep for tax season and all of those things. And we wanted to talk about two things about what actually is potentially deductible to look at in your business. And then also what kind of retirement options people might have because we're all self-employed, so that opens up a couple interesting doors that we can talk about. So yeah, so that's what we wanted to dive into today.
For sure, for sure.
Awesome.
Um,
So yeah, let's start with like tax deduction stuff. I mean, I know as business owners, we're like obviously know that okay, when we buy wall art that we're selling or for marketing, our cost of goods sold is deductible, and some of our expenses, all of our expenses in our business, just about are deductible. But
mhm,
there's a lot of what really truly is deductible that I think people worry that are not, or like maybe some gray areas that we can kind of touch on
mhm.
today. That people are like, I don't know, is it not? Um, so yeah, so let's kind of start diving into some of
For
them.
sure.
Yeah. Where do
Yeah,
we want to
right.
start? Do we want to
Well,
start? I
I mean,
mean, yeah.
I sort of have an alphabetized list here, so we can kinda let's
Okay,
talk through some
perfect.
of these if that works.
I love it.
So, obviously advertising.
Okay.
Um,
Yep.
but I think advertising oftentimes is more than people think it is or realize it is too, right? So your Facebook ads, like that's that kind of stuff if you're doing things like that. But then trade shows, people go to trade
Mm-hmm.
shows, and I think they get caught up in that because it involves travel and other things, and maybe kind of lose sight of like, oh yeah, this is a business deduction too.
Right.
Um,
And that would be like if you're doing like a community day your local shelter's putting on and you're having a booth
yeah.
there. Like so it could be small
Or if you're
community
going
events
to
or
like an
something.
event, like a photography event where you're like gonna
Mm.
go there and, maybe it's more in the wedding arena where people will go to these big wedding
Oh,
expos,
right.
for
Uh-huh.
that and like book people while they're there, but that's advertising.
Yep.
But my favorite is your own brand photo shoot.
Oh, yes.
I
100%.
feel like I get that question all the time, like, and your hair and makeup, like, if it's for that event and it's something you're doing for your marketing and you go get a blowout and you go do some brand shoots for your website, that is definitely a deduction. And I used to do those quarterly. I say I used to. I need to. I've just been a little out of practice, but
Yeah.
um, it's a huge one, and I think it's funny because I think a lot of people don't assume of that. Or if you're
Right.
not doing it, you should be doing it, and now you have a reason to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And this could also be, for instance, I just had a photo session with one of my favorite equine photographers, which then I can use my
Mhm,
photos for marketing my business and on my website, on my
mhm.
photography site and hair of the dog and all of the things. So therefore, it was a
Yeah.
business
I think that's like the
deduction.
most important part of your marketing is people seeing who you are, what's going
Mhm.
on, like, it's a huge piece of it.
Yeah, so all of you guys
Um,
out there,
mhm,
pet photographers, or pet photographers, the people who wanna see pictures of us with our dogs, we can't take our own pictures of us with our
mhm.
dogs, so, why don't you call up some pet photographers that you admire and get your photos done with your dog for your business.
There
Done.
you go.
And if you
And to
just
write it
happen to, like
off.
yeah, and if you just happen to buy yourself a canvas or 2 or the files actually, just buy yourself the files because, you're gonna use
Yep.
those for your marketing, then you can print whatever you want.
Yeah. No, it's very
Done.
true. Very true.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love it. All right.
Another another one is like bank and merchant fees. Like I think
Mm,
there's like a lot of confusion around these, right? Because they sometimes come out of your transactions. Like you get Stripe deposited into your account and then it's
right?
missing the fee. But those are deductions. Anything that you're paying credit card fees on or PayPal fees, like all of those things, those are all deductions to the business. So I guess it folds it into being a part of cost of doing business. And a lot of people hate the fees, but they are deductible.
Yeah, I love that. And that would go along too if you happen to have one of the fancy travel credit cards with all the perks, bells and whistles. Your
Yeah.
annual fee for that credit card would
Yes.
also be tax deductible if it's
Yes,
a
it
business
would.
card. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And of
Totally.
course, guys, best practices separate business credit cards versus personal credit cards, separate business
Yes.
bank account versus personal bank account. But
Yes.
we're not
All
talking
the
about that
way,
today.
every day of the week. Yes, that is the most important. That if that's the one thing you can do to help yourself get organized, you will thank yourself at the end of the year.
Uh huh. Oh, 100%. Okay, perfect.
So, obviously, then business travel, which
Hmm.
again, this could be just meeting somebody at a shoot
Yeah.
or at a park or whatever. Like that's, again, you're in the motion of doing the business and sometimes stop and don't realize, oh my gosh, I just drove 20 miles. Well, 20 miles times, and the rate changes every year. So I think
Yeah.
right now it's like 56 cents, something like that.
I
But
think
come
it's
on,
like
it's like
65 or something. I just
you're right.
looked
I
it up.
think it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, but that's like almost like every 2 miles is way over $1, and you actually
Uh-huh.
get that back dollar for dollar. So like,
Right.
don't leave that money on the table. I mean, this can be going to check your post office box. If you have a post
Mm,
office box for the business at the UPS store, like anything you're doing for your business, that mileage counts. So count it. And there's
perfect.
plenty of mileage counter apps out there to help you get through that.
Yeah, and I even had because I end up driving so much for, like, taking my kids to school or
Hmm.
wherever I'm going, that the mileage apps were kind of a pain for me, so I didn't really
Yep.
use them, so I actually took an old checkbook register and just kept it in my car, and then I would
Yeah.
manually make a list.
Yeah.
So you can go old school like me
And you
too.
can look at your calendar too, and you can say, you can start to put mileage on your calendar and think about, okay, I have this shoot here, I'm going here, and then sort of log it for yourself.
Mhm.
The
Yeah.
idea is that your beginning and ending mileage won't be the same for the year, and in that you need to show how many miles you had that were business, and that might be a better way to keep track, is sort of knowing what you were doing on those days too.
Yeah, true. That also depends, if you are deducting, because some people, if you're traveling a lot for work, do you have to use your car over 50% to be able to deduct the car for business versus personal? What's the rules for
Nope,
that? Because
but you
you
can
can do
only
mile you because you have to choose basically for the car, right? That you're gonna do the mileage
yes.
deduction or the actual expenses of the
Yeah,
car
and your
deduction.
actual costs could be your actual costs. Even, this includes car washes and any maintenance to the car, gas, interest on the payment if you still owe on it, but you can only use the percent. So I always have clients give me both. Give me all your
Mm,
mileage, because you need your mileage anyway, because the mileage
yep,
is going to say you had 10% business use. So now you get 10% of that cost. And I'm going to be honest, with the mileage rate the way that it is most of the time, it's more getting the mileage. But
yeah,
once you pick a way for that vehicle, you have to stick with that until you're done with that vehicle.
okay,
You
gotcha.
can't go back and forth.
Perfect. One day my business might need a pickup truck to pull a horse trailer. I'm just saying.
With your face on it? No.
Yeah, exactly. Marketing, I'm going to horse shows, and they photograph horses. Okay,
Hmm.
don't do that. No, that is not a
No.
wise idea. Okay, perfect. So mileage, cars. All right, keep on going.
So then we have contracted labor, another huge one. And
Mhm.
I think sometimes people don't realize what a contracted labor looks like. So yes, I have a lot of photographers that do things like, they hire second shooters or hair and makeup, but this could also be a business coach. This could also be an editor. Oh my gosh, an editor or caller. What a word. Um, this can be anybody. Honestly, if you pay rent for any sort of space, like a
Mm,
studio, or that is also usually in the realm of contractor, because most people that are landlords will say, Most of them are not S corporations, so they are reportable, but it's like there's a lot of things that you can write off. I'm trying to think of some pet related. Do you guys, I mean, second shooters, maybe, I don't know if anyone ever uses maybe an assistant or someone just because you're
Mm.
dealing with animals and sort
An
of need to
assistant,
corral them
yeah,
and get
an
them.
assistant
Yeah.
can when you have a
Yeah.
busy shoot with lots of dogs, for sure.
Yes. And that can be
Yeah.
a contracted position based on your relationship with them or
Mhm.
an employee. So just to be kind of clear and careful with how that goes.
Yeah.
But
For
yeah, those.
super high level, differentiating between employee and contractor, because I know the IRS will get very angry when somebody should be an employee, but you've been
Mm-hmm.
paying them a contractor for a long time. But an employee, well, is there kind of a high level differentiation between the two?
Yeah, essentially it's like this. Like an employee is somebody that you are sort of like, hey, I need you to be here at this time. You're going to use my equipment. I'm going to train you. I mean, I would say sometimes like studio managers and stuff are more employees than
Mhm.
contractors versus, hey, you're another photographer and I need help. You have your own business. I want to contract you for this job. There actually is, if you go to the IRS website, there's actually sort of a test you can take.
Mhm.
You can Google it, IRS employee versus contractor, and they ask you questions about that person to help you classify them.
Yeah,
I have
perfect.
had this happen before where somebody had an assistant. It was a wedding photographer, and eventually she became an employee. And then this whole thing they had a falling out, and basically the IRS was like, "You owe all the taxes on the wages," as like she was an employee. So
Oh,
you just want to be
yeah.
careful. I also had a client once who had a kiosk in the mall long before I did photographers, who was like contracting his employees. I was like, they're wearing your shirt logo. You cannot do that. You have a schedule on the wall of when they have to be here. So it's about how much. It's about ultimately. It's this. You only control the end product, not how they do it. Essentially,
Mm,
they're a
mhm. Gotcha.
contractor. If they're an employee,
Yep.
you're controlling the whole process. So
Okay,
just be
that makes
careful.
sense. Yep, perfect. Okay, keep on cruising. What's next?
Cost of goods, and we know that one. Cost of
Yep.
goods, albums, prints, frames, anything on. And the other thing in here to consider or think about is samples. A lot of people will order samples; those are deductible. It's under your.
Mhm.
I mean, they're still, even though you're not ordering them for somebody. Try to think what else is in cost of goods for you guys.
Would that be
We talk about it.
dog treats?
What was that?
Would that be dog treats used for the session?
Yeah, like all those things we were just talking about, like any equipment that you need to kind of, whatever toys, whatever it is that you need to get
Mhm.
the animals to agree with you and play along, treats, um, any kind of equipment like that. I would tell you, I even had a client who was deducting sort of some obedience classes. She was taking some classes to learn how to work with dogs better, so
Mm,
she could
mhm.
be, more helpful.
Would that be cost of goods
Um,
sold, or would that go under education?
I would put that under education.
Yeah.
So we're not there.
Okay.
We're in the C's. I'm a little ahead of myself.
It's okay, it's all
So
good.
but I'm trying to think what else. Albums, prints, frames, merchandise, anything basically that you're purchasing that you need in order to do what you're doing
Yeah, okay,
for your
perfect.
business.
Yep, yep, yep. Packaging, that
Then
would
we
be a
have
big one for cost of goods
yes,
sold. Yeah.
yes, absolutely. And anything that you send to clients, like if
Mhm.
you do like a little like box with things like that, all that stuff, yes.
Yep, perfect.
Um,
Okay.
Now we have insurance.
Ooh,
Insurance,
very exciting.
couple things. We want to make sure we have insurance. That's the
Yep.
first thing. A lot
What
of people might
kinds
be
of
like, "What?"
insurance? Yeah, liability
Yep.
insurance, probably some
Yep.
deer insurance.
Yep. If you're doing a business property, if you have people on your
Mhm.
property, like what does that look like? I'm
And
looking, there's
spoiler
workers'
alert, a
comp.
lot of our homeowners insurance will not cover our
Yeah.
business items or anyone coming to your house for business related things.
Yeah. And some states are even like make you pay I think it was California, I think.
Shocking.
Yeah, they'll make you pay just because you have a business and then say you can have the business in your house, but you cannot have clients in your house. Like it's like they call you out on it. Yeah, there's like professional liability insurance, general liability insurance. I mean, it depends on what you need. There's yes, equipment, and there are companies, and you're probably aware of this, but there's definitely companies that have like photography specific like policies that cover a lot of that
Mhm.
stuff to look up. But that's a
What ab
deduction.
Yeah, what about health insurance if you are doing this as a sole proprietor or even as an S corp?
So this is fun. Actually currently working on a little lesson on this because like everyone's asking about it. But health insurance is deductible on your personal return if you're not an S corp. So if you're paying into it and stuff, there
Okay.
is a deduction for you. But if you're an S corporation, your business can have the policy for you, and there's a different way that it can be deducted.
Okay. So it's
Just
deductible
another
either way. It just depends what your business
yes,
structure is on where it goes.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
If you're paying for it and everything versus not I would say like when you're paying the premiums,
Right.
but it
Yeah.
also is a rule. So I'll give you just a little bit on this because it can get like crazy. But if you this is only if you haven't been offered insurance like through your spouse or someone else.
Uh-huh.
If you
Okay.
have that, you can't just go get insurance and be like, no, I don't want that. I want this and deduct it. You can't have you so you have to have no other insurance available in order to
Okay.
do this.
I wasn't aware of that
So
one. Okay, very good.
yeah, we're deep
And
in the research on
if
getting
you're
this laid
getting
out.
it through your spouse or your full-time job and maybe you're doing photography on the side, then
Yeah.
the premiums are not that you're paying, like if you're co-paying the premiums with your employer, that's not your
Yeah.
photography business, then that's not
Yep.
deductible, correct? Or
Any
a certain
pre
percentage of like your
Yeah,
income or
yeah.
health
And then
costs.
if the other thing is like honestly, all your doctor copays, like all
Yeah,
anything you pay out of pocket for dental, medical, and vision are deductible, but it has to be so much money, and then you
right.
only get above 7.5% of that. It's like such a thing, and you have to itemize. And it's just become in 2018 they changed the standard deduction for everybody. They doubled it, right? So if you've
Yep.
heard standard deduction, that's just the amount that gets taken right off the top when you're single or married filing joint. And so what happens is that's so high now that you'd have to have a lot of these medical expenses and a lot of mortgage
Mhm.
interest and all these things to even make it worth sitting down and tallying all that up.
Yep.
But they want you to have insurance. So there is a deduction for you paying the premiums on your plans. And it just depends on how you're structured because if you're an S Corp, part of that can go through your business. So you get that benefit of that
Right. Okay, perfect.
without going too far down the rabbit hole of,
No,
of
yeah,
these
for
things.
sure. It's never simple in a one
No,
easy the
no.
one
That's why
fits
I'm
all
working on laying
solution.
it out to kind of get it. I get that question all the time and it's hard. It's one of those things where I just need to lay it out. So it's very visually like broken out and you can see.
Right. If
Um,
this, go here. It's like a flow
yes,
chart.
yes, right. I know you had touched on it earlier, the gray area, and I'm like, yes, isn't that all tax? Everything's a gray area.
Yeah,
We live in the
right.
gray area here. Interest is the next one. So, and this is really big on like business credit cards. That interest is a deduction. Be mindful if you're using a personal credit card for business to be really careful because, especially if you're mixing business and personal, that's not really a full deduction. So, just be
Mhm.
mindful of that. But like business loans, some people did get the EDL loans, and now they're
Yeah.
paying them back. But all that interest is deduction.
Yep. Okay.
And then we have licenses and taxes. So this is like forming your LLC, that's a deduction. What it costs to do that, that's a
Right.
deduction. Getting your any kind of license you have to get, different states require different things. Some states, as I'm sure many know, like some states will require you to pay a fee to use parks and things like that, or get permits and things like
Mhm.
that. So all of that is a deduction to your business.
And hiring a tax professional like yourself to do your
Yes.
taxes is also a deduction.
I'm the best tax deduction there is. I always say that. I always say that on my in my webinars. I'm like, and my favorite, your accountant. But
I love
yeah,
it.
and that kind of is in the next one, the legal and professional. So that's kind of our next
Mhm.
category. So, and that's your accountant, your legal fees, consulting, any like association or membership dues, things that you kind of keeping everything together for yourself, the back end of your business, if you will. Legal is a big one too. People don't realize sometimes, when you getting help with contracts or anything like that,
Mhm.
that's also a deduction. I think who else falls under professional?
What about like if you were
Consulting
getting
is
if you were I guess that would be an independent contractor. If you were paying a makeup artist to do
yeah,
makeup for like a high school senior session, that would be an independent contractor.
contractor, but
Yep.
consulting, under legal and professional, like consulting or business coaching, like that, getting any
Yep.
sort of mentoring, things like that,
Mhm.
also deductible.
Yeah, you guys, your Hair of the Dog Academy membership is tax
Yes,
deductible.
we should put a sticker on it, like
Tiffany
deductible.
approved tax deduction. I love
Oh
it.
my god. And then we come to mileage, which we were just talking about. So
Yep.
yeah, so at the end of the year, it was for the end of 2022, it was 62.5%. Now I think it's 65 cents. But again, meeting the client, shooting an event, attending a trade show. Like if you're
Mhm.
going to a show or something.
If you're
Um,
flying to the show, but you're driving to the airport to catch
yep,
your business trip, that is
yep.
also deductible. Yep.
Going to the store to pick up equipment. Like if you make a trip to the store and you're getting stuff, like just try to start living your life in two like lanes, like business and personal, and you'll start to see all the things you do that you've just been melding together into what is
Yep.
your life and get some money back for it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, like these are the reason the tax code is so long is often because there are deductions and ways to, they want you
Mhm.
to encourage you to do certain things,
Yeah.
like have a business.
Um, the next one's fun. This is meals, and meals is gone away and changed. There used to be this thing called
Oh,
meals and
yeah. Oh,
entertainment, but
well, what
now
happened? Okay, go ahead. Yeah, start that because that
they took away
changed
the
a
well, I
couple
think it
years
was
ago.
abused.
Yes.
I'm thinking that was a
Because it
very
was
abused thing because
people would
entertainment could
have
be a lot of things.
yeah,
Yep.
I know, like, my stepdad had a car dealership, and I'm pretty sure, his golf club membership was
Yeah.
entertained
Oh,
as he
yeah,
was
and
saying.
people would do season tickets to, like,
Uh-huh, yeah.
hockey games and things.
Yeah, I think he probably
So
had those too.
they cut it down to meals.
This was back in the
And
90s.
yes, no, and I'm telling you, I actually before I did, photographers specifically, I had an insurance broker guy, and I really literally know why that
So
law has changed. I mean, I'm pretty sure they were just looking at it being like, "What's one of the biggest, like, gray areas in our tax code, and how
right,
do we, like, get rid of it?" But you can deduct 50% of your meals, but it's very important that you understand this meal is like, I'm having coffee with a client. I am taking a client to lunch. I am taking you cannot be just like, "I'm grabbing Starbucks on the way to here." It's
right.
not about, like, for you.
It
And that's that
I was gonna say it could be meeting another photographer to talk business.
yes, a
Yeah.
photographer, your
Mhm.
contractor,
Yep.
maybe you're meeting your editor, maybe you're meeting a second shooter. Anything that's involving another person that's business related, and you're
Mhm.
supposed to put the name of the person on the receipt and what you
Yep.
talked about.
Okay.
Um, and then you only can deduct 50% of that. But I will
Gotcha.
say for 2022, it's 100% because of COVID. They changed the law. So it's kind of
Right.
annoying right now because it's changed for a very, I don't know actually, because it's how tax law works. They change it and they're going to change it back. And then you just don't know when it's going to change back. So it is
Right.
100%.
And then they sometimes
Um,
wait until, like, November and say, "Oh, 2023, 100% deductible."
yep.
Like, they'll
And then everybody has to go back and amend
retroactive.
their
Yeah.
returns. This is the
Yeah.
thing. It's like they don't even know when tax day is. I don't understand. But meals deduction, I think, is one of the biggest ones that people are not really sure. And I do
Mhm.
get a lot of clients that are like, I'm like, what is that? And they're like, oh, I was on my way to a wedding. Well, yeah, but feeding yourself is not really
Yeah.
part of that anymore like it was. The other thing to think about is some people have studios and they have like they'll buy bottled water or have coffee or snacks or
Mhm.
something. That's more like cost of goods.
Office
Just want to be
supplies.
clear. Like
Oh,
that's
yeah.
supplies. Like
Okay.
you're not that's you trying to keep things nice in the office.
What
So,
about meals for yourself when you are traveling for work? Like, you have flown away from
yes.
home and you're at a convention.
Yeah. So the rule is kind of that's kind of under the travel umbrella, right? So the rule is like if you are far enough away from home that you have to stay overnight, your
Yep.
meals can be a business deduction. And that again, I'm looking up here. I believe those can be 100%. They keep changing percents
Yep.
on things.
How
I'm
do
telling
you
you.
differentiate those for normal meals and then travel meals? Do you just have 2
Cuz you'll
different line
have
items?
yeah, you'll have your other travel things to go with it. You can prove like
Yep.
here's my flight, I was here for this week, here's my
Yep.
hotel, like here's my things. But yes, because but it has to be like that you're far enough away from home that
Right.
you have to eat out or you
Yep.
have to like feed yourself for business. And there, yes, people will be like, well, what if my trip was 5 days? I was with my family at Disney and 2 days I did this. Well, then you have to divide it and figure it out and keep super great records that show
Mhm.
exactly the whatever the percent of business everything is. So just
Right.
be careful.
Yep.
Office expenses, very general. This was like, I
Mhm.
think everyone knows this one. All the things. I think when you purchase presets and templates, office furniture, computers, printers,
Mhm.
website hosting, email, your marketing software, all this stuff is office expenses. And again, these categories are like what they are, but this is however you want to see it on your profit and loss. It's not office
Mhm.
expenses could be you could call it something else, but this is what it is on the tax return. You could
Yep.
have it broke out differently if you wanted to
Yeah,
see
I
like your
have a little
website costs.
sub item of software
Yeah,
on
yeah.
mine. So I wanna see how
Yeah,
much
I
I
keep
spend on
track of my
software.
apps very closely because there's a million of them, and I need to really know, like, monitor myself and what I'm doing. The same. And then we have rent. It's a very
Okay.
obvious one,
Yep.
but, a lot of times this is like renting equipment because some
Oh,
people do rent lenses and stuff, storage rental. Like some people may have enough stuff that they rent a storage unit and then they swap things out. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't have space to store it where you live or in a studio rent, of course. Garment rental. Some people rent garments for different shoots and things. Location rental. If you have to, some states are getting hip to the fact that photography is huge. And so they want a piece of whatever people are doing in their parks, but
Right.
something to think about there.
What about home office? Is that a separate one you're going to talk about?
It
Or home
is.
studio?
Yes, it's up here. It's coming.
Okay.
It's coming. I'm realizing these may not be in full order, I
Oh,
guess,
it's all
because
good.
now you're
All
right.
good.
It is. Then I have supplies and expenses, which we touched on, right? So we're
Yep.
talking about like just, that's pretty general, but that could be props, different things, however you want to categorize that.
Yep.
Training and education, which we kind of touched on a little bit. But again, if you're going to a conference,
Mm-hmm.
you have all that travel. Maybe you're traveling to a conference. So now you have all that travel expense, and then you have the cost of the conference too. That's education.
Yep.
In-person workshops and classes, and then online courses and training, which is huge in our world,
Mm-hmm.
right? All those are
Yep.
deductible.
And coaching. If you were to
Yes.
hire like an individual, even one-to-one coach, that would
Yep.
be deductible too.
Yep.
Yep. Perfect.
Utilities. If you rent a studio space, make sure you have those utilities. Utilities will tie into home office. We're going to talk about in a minute too.
Okay.
Same thing for repairs and maintenance. If you have a studio and you have to have repairs and maintenance done, or you're having to pay for them, maybe the landlord doesn't cover that part or whatever, or you rent a space and you put all the work in to make it what you want for your studio, that's all a deduction. That's called a leasehold improvement. We don't want to get too crazy, but you track all that. That's important. And then we have the home office deduction. So the home office deduction is you can basically take a percentage that you use of your home for business.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say that your home is, oh gosh, I'm going to do
1,000 square feet because it's easy.
1,000. Yep. 1,000 square feet.
That's
And
the
you're
small
in
even by
100
California standards, but
Right. And so they say 100 square feet is your home office where
Yep.
you do your editing and all this. So that's 10%.
Yep. You got it.
Yes. Look, yes. Yeah. It's tax season, my brain. So 10%. So now you can take 10% of your mortgage interest. You could take 10% of your utilities, 10% of your anything you need to run that home that connects to that room. That's an indirect cost. So when you see home office deduction, if you look on your tax return and you look at that schedule, or you see like a worksheet, it'll say direct and indirect. So those are your indirect costs because they're going to get multiplied by the 10%. But let's say you paint the walls in your office and you redo the floors in your office, or you do something particularly in the office, that's a direct cost. So you get 100% of that.
Okay.
So you want to track those things like, what am I doing in here? Like I had French doors put on my office because this is actually an old dining room.
Okay.
So that was 100% because I needed privacy. But then like the utilities, everything like that. I mean, and that adds up quickly.
Right.
So there's two pieces. So you can do that, which is, the actual cost method, kind of like the vehicle thing we talked about, or you can do something called safe harbor, which is you can just take $5 a square foot up to, and I'm not sure if they've changed it yet. It's been pretty steady for a while, up to $1,500.
Okay.
So you have to have proof you're using your home, but you don't have to have all that math and documentation.
Gotcha.
But it's one of those things where you pick one, that's what you use.
Yep. Okay.
So, but I think a lot of people don't realize that space is a deduction. Could I interest you in talking about a couple of things that are not deductible?
Yes, let's
that
do
people
that.
think are, because I have the next. These are the not deductibles.
Yeah.
Charitable donations is like the number one thing. People are like, what? But this is not deductible through a business. There is not. You'll go through every business tax form, like the 1120S, go through a Schedule C. Not one line says donations because it's not a business deduction. We've talked about this before, and I think it might even be in another podcast episode where we were talking about how that's more like it could be advertising, like it could be other things. So you want to examine what you're actually donating, quote unquote.
Does it get passed through to your personal return depending on how you're filing? Yeah.
So you could take it as a draw, and then you can count it on your own return. But again, that's part of itemized deductions. However, because of COVID, we have like a $300. You can take up to $300 regardless if you itemize or use the standard deduction. And I think that's still going to be in effect for 2022. but it's just they make it so hard.
Right.
And so I just want to say let's donate from the bottom of our hearts, because if you're doing it for the tax deductions,
Yeah.
you might be disappointed. But yeah, the biggest thing is a lot of people will do stuff that they think is donating, and it's actually brand awareness. And then I'm like, well,
Mm.
what were you doing? Okay, so you went to the SPCA, but you were there and people know who you are now, and you were actually advertising. And you're
Mhm.
going to give them, so we can work that out. We structure that to the way that it makes sense, because that's what they're ultimately doing.
Right.
Clothing is another one. We did talk about, there is clothing you can purchase. A lot of boudoir photographers will buy things for like a client closet, and that's
Mhm.
deductible. But clothing is a big deal. People ask all the time, well, I have this outfit I wear to weddings, or I have this outfit I wear because the dogs jump all over me. Like, if you can wear that clothing somewhere else, like on a daily, that's not deductible. If it has your logo on it, it is. So maybe you have clothes the dogs can jump on you with your logo, and that's brand
Mhm.
awareness. So just being mindful of that. Clothing is a big one that people ask, especially with
Yeah.
photographers. It's like for
Mhm.
comfort. And I'm like, yeah, it can't. They're like, but the camera bag always ruins my shirt, so I always wear this one. And I'm like, well, get your logo on it. That's all I
But
can
your
say.
your camera bag is deductible.
Yes,
Or, like, if
absolutely.
you're getting, like, a spider holster kinda thing to
Oh
hold
yeah,
your camera on, that's all
all that
deductible.
equipment.
Equipment, yep, okay.
And the last one is gifts.
Mm.
Gifts. Well, there's a couple more in here, but gifts like is one. There's this law. It's like $25 per person per year. It's like been in effect since like 1962. There's literally language in it about canned hams. This is how old this law is. But again, though, I find clients that are like, oh, well, I send this client gift. And I'm like, no, no, that's not a client gift. You're sending this branded box with this and that. Like, this is
Right,
advertising because you're hoping to get new clients from this.
right.
You're
Or
leaving
it's
this
cost of
relationship.
goods sold as part of your
Yeah.
workflow. Yeah.
Or you do the same, and that's very key, Nicole. Like, do the same thing for everyone, or this package always gets this. This package always get, and then it's
Uh-huh.
a cost of goods. It's not like a
Yep.
personal, like, well, I love her. I'm just going to
Yeah.
send her this
Mhm.
thing. So if you can show that it's standardized like that, then it's not considered a gift. You might call it that, but
Right.
I think that's the confusion too, is like the IRS terms and what we're saying about
Right,
things.
right.
The last two big ones I think we all know, but personal expenses are never business
Right.
expenses, and sales tax is never an expense. Sales tax
Gotcha.
comes in, sits on your balance sheet, and then you pay it. It's never an expense. It never touches your profit and loss.
Yeah.
You're not paying it. You were just the safekeeper holding it. So some people do get confused with that, but that is
Whew.
the laundry list of things.
Excellent. And you have a tax guide on your website
I
for
do.
people?
This is
Okay,
kind of what I'm
perfect.
going off of, but there's a lot of links on here to some blogs and some
Yep.
videos on different deductions and worksheets too.
Okay, awesome. We'll link to that in the show notes, so people can think. There is one more that I want to bring up, and
Yes.
that is, I have a dog. I'm a pet photographer. Can I hire my dog as a model?
I'm going to say the IRS will be like, sure, are you filing taxes for your dog too? Because they want their money.
Right, right. I
Um,
guess it would be if your dog was an actual professional working like dog. Like they have the animal talent. Like so
right. And
those
then the
dogs
owner
actually
of that
have like
dog is
right,
doing taxes, and they are
right.
literally making money off the dog. They are
Yep,
the actual business owner.
yep.
It's a
But your
fun
pet
niche
dog
to
is
get
likely
in.
not.
I don't know. My dog knows now I have a plan.
I
No.
love it. But the one thing you
um,
can is if you are a family and pet photographer, or like if you have a child that you are hiring as a model,
mhm.
you can pay them to be
Yes.
model, and you can
And
also pay them to work in your business. Can you
yep.
tell us more about
Yeah.
that?
So you can pay your kids. I actually wanted to check. I think it's up to the age of 17.
Okay.
But you're basically that standard deduction we talked about, and there's the itemized deduction. The standard deduction again is essentially like when you file your taxes, they give you that right back. So you
Right.
can pay your kids up into the standard deduction amount. So you can Google whenever you're listening to this, the IRS, whatever year it is, standard deduction, whatever that number is, you can pay your kids up to that amount tax free essentially, and it's going to be like a contractor situation. You're not going to put them through payroll. You're just going to pay them, but they don't have to, I think then you're going to report it, but they're going to they're not going to owe anything on it. And then taxes are going to be taken out. But you have to prove that they do something. It could be cleaning your office.
Right. It
I'm
could
just
be
saying. I don't know. That was
packaging.
my first idea that
Yeah,
came
right.
into my mind.
That's what my kids, they clean their office, they package things,
Oh, yeah.
my daughter's old enough now, she'll assist me on sessions. I have them do like random online, like, like, hey, these two things need to be like just repetitive tasks
Hmm.
that I don't
Yep.
want to do. And yeah, it works really
But I
quite
had a
well.
client who did this. So he had both his kids this way, but he took all that money and put it into their 529 college fund. So he was
Mm-hmm.
paying them, was able to deduct it through the business
Mm-hmm.
and put it into their college fund. And like, that's a really nice idea.
Yep.
Mine is
Yeah.
currently in
So
college and I did not think of these things, but
I I actually I don't know, I would say it's almost one step better. I take
Mm.
what they pay, and it pays for my daughter's horse. So like it's actually paying for her
Yes. Well, that is
activities.
a lot, right? A horse
Yeah.
situation. My sister had
Yeah.
horses, so that's like a
Yeah.
full-time income.
Well, and my accountant told me this. I'm like, so you're telling me I can have a tax deductible horse? It's like, well, no, not really
Mm.
exactly that way, but yes. But I also, since she has earned income, we can contribute to a Roth IRA for her,
Oh.
which we started for her when she was then 13. So
That
my
is better
son's,
because I believe that's gonna be more rewarding and it's gonna grow better than a college
hmm
fund, and yeah.
yeah, especially you don't really get, well, you don't get a deduction on the Roth IRA now either, but it's should, unless they clawed back at some point in their
Yeah,
greedy tax
I know,
lives, IRS lives.
I know.
Um,
They
but
want you to have
yeah,
enough, but just enough and also not too much. That is exactly how they operate on everything, so
exactly. Yes. Yeah. So if you guys have human children, you can definitely look at, are there things in your business that they could do? And like, correct me if I'm wrong, but
Mhm,
like I have a little job description, and the
mhm,
tasks are age appropriate, and
yeah.
things that actually happen in my business that she can actually do. And yeah, it works out pretty well. And
I
then
love that. That's such a good idea. She's got a retirement plan. That's fantastic.
yeah, uh-huh. Yeah, it's fantastic, which I believe you can do too. Like kids can do, even if they're not working for your business, like if they're just babysitting, they have to file a tax return saying that I earned, $3,000 this year
Mhm.
babysitting, but then they can put all of that
Can you
into a
imagine what
Roth
that will be
IRA.
like when she's, like, even our age? Like, holy
Right.
goodness, like, that's, like, just getting a step up. That's great. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Great
So, all
strategy.
right, everybody out there, if you have human kids, make sure you utilize these benefits because
And because don't forget, the other part of all of this is that's a deduction to your business. So you're
right.
deducting that money and putting it somewhere in your future, which is I always tell people, like, it doesn't matter. There's all these strategies to like take what you have and not give it to the IRS, even if you're putting it in your future or putting it in your kid's future for 20 years from now. You're not
Mhm.
giving it to the IRS for nothing.
Yeah, this actually is a perfect segue into talking about retirement options
Yes.
and making sure that we are thinking of our future self and saving something for when we are, and even if you're working full time at like a corporate job and doing pet photography on the
Mhm.
side, like there's still possibly some good retirement strategies that you can take advantage from both positions. So let's talk about those for a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I
You-
honestly feel like, and I'm guilty too.
Yep.
I've been in business for 10 years, and that not cross my mind for the longest time? Like, well, I don't sit in a cubicle. I'm not in corporate America. I don't get a retirement fund. I don't
Right.
know. I didn't even think about it. And then when you start realizing, like, wait a minute, I can turn this business into sort of the machine that fuels financially all the things I need in life, and
Hmm.
then you have more control. And the um the self-employed plans are a little more advantageous because they really want you, right? They want you to make enough, just enough, but not too much. And they want to make sure you're putting money in there. So they
Uh huh.
do, because obviously you put in all these funds, people are making money off your money, but it encourages you to do that. And so you can deduct those. Not the Roth, because the Roth is after tax money, but that's like your advantage is that you're not going to have taxes on it when you take it out, right?
Right. Yeah. So most of the plans have a Roth option and a traditional option. And the
Hmm.
traditional option is I get a tax deduction now. If I put $10,000 in, I get a tax deduction of like $10,000 deduction on my taxes,
Hmm.
whether personal or
Hmm.
business, depending on the setup. But then Roth is like I put $10,000 in now. I'm paying income tax now today on that $10,000. But it will grow forever and ever and ever
And I'm not
without
paying
paying
taxes when I
tax
take it out.
ever again.
Who knows what those taxes will be in that day when that
Right.
time comes.
Right. Yeah. And the Roth, at least as of now too, depending on when you if you leave it to your heirs, like the Roths, I think are still tax free for them, or there's a new
Possibly a
cost
lot a
basis or
yeah, a
something.
lot of things sort of are depending on, how your, like, estate is set up or how things
Yeah.
are, like, when you go there's also the simple and the SCP, which are great, and they serve people in different I would say what if you have employees, one is better than the other. If you don't, one is better than the other.
Okay.
Um But the biggest thing is, like, these can be if you are an S corporation, you can deduct stuff through your business. You can through your own payroll, you can contribute to your plan, your business can match you, that's an expense to your business. But even if you're not an S corp, on your personal return, you can get, a deduction for contributing into these plans.
Okay.
Um, the other thing to think about is that you can start and contribute into these plans even in the next tax year. So I'm going to give an example. We're in 2023 right now. It's February. I
Mhm.
could start a new, SEP or simple plan and do that up until the time that I file my return and actually count it for last year. This is how I personally, transparency here, started my retirement plan. I owed a lot of
Mhm.
money in taxes. I had a heart attack. I didn't know what to do. And then I was like, "You know what? I'm just gonna do it." And I'm so glad it's been 8 years and I've never had retirement before this. I had like little
Yeah.
chintzy, 401ks from past jobs that didn't amount to much. And now I actually have a really good retirement because it started then. So wouldn't you rather put money into your future, kind of like we were just talking about with the kids stuff, then give it to the IRS for nothing. You get nothing in return from that. So even if it's not dollar for dollar, you still put something in your future. It's
Mhm.
just something to consider. And if you can't afford it, just start little. Start with
Mhm.
$20. Like a little by little, a little becomes a lot. And I can't stress that enough, especially now. Like I'm thinking about what you're doing with your kids, like how that is just going to stack up over time and grow.
Yeah. Yes.
Um,
So for the different plans, if you are, say, self-employed, it's like you're filing a Schedule C,
mhm.
whether you're LLC or not, you're just um,
Yep.
solo show. What are your options for retirement plans to look into for them?
So you can and like there's solo 401k, there is the
Okay.
simple, there's the SEP. There we'll leave the Roth out because of the tax. We're talking about the tax deductible ones, and then you're gonna actually report those on Schedule 1 on your taxes. It'll
Okay.
ask. There's a line. It literally says contributions to a simple or SEP.
Yep.
Your different plans. It's kind of like the medical, where if you're going to be paying into something that they want you to have, then you
Yep.
get a deduction on those things.
Okay, perfect. And then is that the same for if you have that S corp? It's just run on your taxes a little bit different, but the same
Yeah,
types
so
of.
if you have that S corp, you're like, so I have this set up this way. It comes out of my paycheck, I contribute, and then my business matches me. It's
Hmm.
reported on my W-2. So I'm getting the deduction through my business and through my business is deducting my wages and all of that stuff.
Yep.
So then that's going to come over on your W-2, sort of like when you worked for somebody else.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. That's how I have mine set up. So I'm an LLC, but I file as an S corp, and
Yep.
I have um, a solo self-directed 401k. And so I essentially contribute my employee contribution out of my paycheck
Hmm.
every 2 weeks that I get paid, and that goes into a Roth 401k, because
Hmm.
here's a nice little secret too, that the Roth IRA, like a standard, I'm going to call Vanguard and open a Roth IRA, it has income limitations. But there's some backdoor ways you could do it. But those 401ks, solo 401ks, have Roth options. So my contribution during the year goes into a Roth side, and then when my employer contribution, so when I write a check for my
Hmm.
business at the end of the year to match that, that goes into traditional because that one can't go into Roth. So that way I'm kind of splitting up too my tax savings between taxable now, taxable later, tax deduction now or no, it's just
Yeah, no, I love
putting
it, and
both sides of the
I
coin.
have mine in a I have employees,
Yeah.
so we have a simple because whatever the SEP I had before, I think it's up to 25% you can contribute of your
Mhm.
wages, but you have to do that for everybody, And so
Yeah.
I'm like, I love my employees, but I can't afford to do that for everybody. So what we
Right.
converted to a simple plan. But that's the thing. The other part is like cash flow. You don't really think about it. It's just cash flows coming in, you paying yourself, and you're chipping away and you're putting money away. I think that's the biggest thing is like I'm blown away sometimes. I'm like, I can't believe I've saved this much. And I
Mhm.
just started doing it and then I don't think about it. It's just like a habit now. It's built into payroll and it goes right along with cash flow. And it's not like you have to stop and figure out anything. And I think that's also a benefit of trying to like do something like this.
Yeah. That you hit the nail on the head, and I think the most important thing for people to develop is that habit of saving for themselves and for
Mhm,
their future.
mhm,
Whether that is in their corporate job, whether that's through their photography business, whether it's both, there's always opportunities to do that, and it's just getting started even if it's like $25 a week. Like
mhm,
we can all afford $20 a week, $100 a month. Like
mhm.
just start little and then you start to see some progress. And when you set it up automated, you never even see it. Like it
Yeah,
just
that's the thing. Yeah.
and
It's like
and
magic.
yeah. Because if we wait for ourselves to be like, oh, let me transfer it over every week, it's never gonna happen.
Oh, absolutely. It's absolutely. I think it's the best thing about all of it. And like that's honestly why in a way like I love the S corp option too is like because people will be like, "Well, payroll," but it's like, "Yeah, but you're paying a little bit each time into your tax like you're sort of with you're moving along with cash flow of your business.
Hmm.
You're not just getting to the end of the year and then like, "Oh my god, I got to figure all this stuff out," and it's overwhelming and
Right.
daunting. And so it's sort of just kind of it's sort of like a habit all of it. It's super helpful
Yeah.
and efficient.
Yep, yep. And obviously we're not financial planners, so none of this is financial
Yes, yes,
advice.
yes.
But like truly, if you guys are like, I don't even know where to start, and you're under the income limits for a Roth IRA, like that is a no-brainer. I think the limits right now are like 6,500 a year or something. They're not as high as the 401ks. Don't quote me on that amount. They change every
Mhm,
year. Um, but like just go to like Vanguard, which is
mhm.
so low fee, open up a total stock market. And here's the other thing, which again, this is turning into, again, we're not financial
No,
advisors,
no, it's fine.
but
We're
um,
passionate though.
yes, we are. I think right now, because the stock market the past year has not
Mm,
been the
mm,
best, but it had a decade long run. But I think a lot of people get really fearful when they see, oh, but it's not. Why would I put money in now? But
mhm.
in actuality, everything's pretty much on sale. So now is like the
Yes,
time to double
yes,
down, like, let's get it in there. And it still might dip some more, but it's historically, it's going to continue
yes.
to go up. So, yeah, I actually
It's
read,
true.
I forget what book it was. I think it was a Tony Robbins book about like investing and just like the game of money where you're just like, it's a long game and you're going to have these ups and
Mhm.
downs, but just knowing like the historical gains, like it's going to come back. And if you need that money in the next 5 years, it probably shouldn't be in the market anyway. So, um, you know, just start small.
Yeah, no, truthfully. And there are I don't know if you wanna touch on this, but there are some other things you can do with your, like your 401k and stuff. And
Hmm.
one of them is like we've had a couple clients do this because not now, but 6 months ago or
Yeah.
so when the housing market was just like crazy, people were buying their first houses and they could take the money out. You can take it out and put it back
Hmm.
for your first house or take it out and not pay. You pay taxes on it. You just don't pay the penalty on it if it goes to your first home. But there's like a list of things, because we are in those situations where, I think that we I don't want to use the word uncertain times, but it is. It's been a real
Right.
interesting one weird
It's
day
the start
after
of
another
the
lately.
decade. Yeah.
But to know like that security is there for you, right? So even
Uh-huh.
if you're putting it in there now, like it's not, I say locked in there forever. Like you also have sort of this confidence that I have, okay, if all the chips are down, like I have something for myself that I can work
Hmm.
out.
Yeah.
Um, that's other I think it could be that it's the putting the money in and then it's feeling like you can't get it out.
Right. Well, and Roth IRAs have that too, where after it's in, I think like 5 years or something, you can
Mhm,
take out principal that you've put in if you need it for certain, like it's almost becomes an extra, not like a liquid cash savings, but an extra
mhm,
savings net in case you
mhm.
were to ever need it. Um, yeah, I was going to say something else and I don't remember. Anyway, get in the habit of starting small and just
Yeah,
getting that ball rolling
totally.
is huge. So, ooh, this has been a really good conversation about all
I
sorts of
know.
non-exciting things, but I think we made it fun.
I think that our yeah, I agree. No, I think it's important, and I think it's things that we often as business owners, we're in the hustle of doing business
Mhm,
and growing it, and I think, it's like peeling back and making that time to really think about the overall picture, the goals for our lives,
mhm.
and how our business helps us get there because it is the vehicle in which we will get there. So we have to,
Yep,
take care of
yep, and yeah, this is my plea to you guys. Seriously, a tax advisor is worth their weight in gold
it.
because we just spent an hour just like touching the surface of all of
Mhm,
these things. But to have someone that can look at your situation, look at your business, look at your personal, sit down and say, hey, did you know you can do this? Hey, I recommend you do this. Hey, you're going to owe a lot of taxes this year, but instead we can invest it into your future.
mhm.
You can do this. Just having those options, oh my gosh, it's worth every penny. And as we talked about, it's tax deductible. So it's not even like you have to pay it because your
Yeah.
business can pay it for you.
It's true, and the peace of mind of just sort of
Uh-huh.
knowing, okay, like, somebody okay, I'm not gonna be caught off guard, I'm not
Mhm.
I think it's the peace of mind of just knowing, like, I have that support and help is everything, because
Yeah.
as we're talking and you probably listening to this, I bet there were a few things you were like, What?" And,
Right, right.
like, that's stressful, I don't want that to be stressful for
Yeah.
people, and I think that that's important. There's a few people, I think, as you build a business that are really crucial steps for you into the next level of yourself and your business, and
Mhm.
it's always be learning and growing and really utilizing outside sources that are experts in their area, whether it is a mentor or an
Mhm.
accountant. I mean, it's going to help you twofold because you gain knowledge and you gain time when
Yes.
you're not
Yep.
having to live through the whole experience of it or make the mistakes, or you're learning from someone else and you're able to, like, it's kind of like a cheat code when you can
Right.
when you can learn from somebody else, like, you kind of skip some steps, and why not.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. Well, Tiffany, let them know
Mhm.
where they can find you. And also, by the way, Tiffany is an enrolled agent with the IRS. So she is
Yes.
able to do all the tax things and the bookkeeping and all the stuff.
Yes.
So tell us where to find more about you.
Yeah, so bastianaccounting.com. We have everything there. It's bastianaccounting.com. I'm sure it'll be in the show notes.
Yes.
I feel like I picked the longest URL I could. Uh,
Hey, you didn't put Tiffany in the front. So, you're good.
I know, true. But yeah, so we have the business expense breakdown guide there that we were talking about. It's a free download. And then we actually have the state by state sales tax guide too. And I
Mm,
love that for photographers because that's those, I bet those are really the two big pain points of
mhm.
anyone getting started. So it kind of helps you kind of get some bearing on what's going on here and how to move forward.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tiffany, for
Yep.
being here and sharing your wealth of
Pleasure as
knowledge with
always.
us. Yay. All right. And well, I'm sure talk to you soon. Bye,
Alrighty.
everybody.